My training week starts on Sunday. Sunday, I make it a focused effort to move as much as possible, ideally outdoors. I'm thinking endurance. I essentially want to be like a mule. So what I'll do on that day is, because sometimes it's a social day with other people in my life, if I'm on my own, I'll throw on a 8 or 10 pound weight and I'll head out for probably a 75-minute to a 90-minute slow jog with some hills. And I'll try and nasal breathe the whole time. I'll often listen to a podcast or a book. If I'm with other people, what I will do is I'll fill up a backpack with a bunch of heavy stuff, usually some water in there too, and drink it as I go. And I'll do 3 or 4 or 5 hours of just hiking and just trying to be outside as much as possible. The specific goal of that day is endurance. Because of the other things I do in the previous days, the 10 or 20 minutes, which that come at the start, really suck. But what's amazing is somewhere in that 25, 30 minute period, you start to feel really good. You actually start to adapt to it, right? So these Sunday long, slow jogs or hikes are really for my mind as much as they are for my body. And I'm convinced that they also carry over to my ability to endure boring stuff during the week, but also just my ability to work longer for longer bouts. Okay, so that's Sunday. Then Monday is, the goal for me is to train my legs. First of all, I just like the way that sounds to myself, like leg workout on Monday, but it also sets up the work week really nicely. Here's why. I'm going to train my legs the way that's always worked best for me for training, which is a warm up and then 2 to 3, maybe 4 hard sets. We're talking about 2 to 4 sets, but usually 2 to 3 of 2 exercises per muscle group. I should mention that the reason for training legs is that everyone should train legs. So, large muscle groups, I'm trying to maintain some lower body strength or build lower body strength and explosiveness. The data that I see on longevity and just simply ability to perform different sports and to just feel strong throughout the body is strongly rooted in the legs.
Yeah.
So don't skip leg day. So I start with tib raises. So it's going to be a couple warm-ups, maybe a 12 rep warm-up, an 8 rep warm-up. And then I'll do, 3 sets per tib of anywhere from 6 to 10 reps. Okay. Andy Galpin told me, and the literature supports, people like Brad Schoenfield and others have shown that for hypertrophy, for muscle growth, 6 to 30 reps, anywhere in there can get you hypertrophy if you go to failure and if you go hard. I personally like to keep my resistance workouts an hour or less. I like to train in the more or less the 5 to 10 repetition range for strength and for hypertrophy. And I'm kind of going for a mix of both. So I train tibs, then I do sled or standing calf raises. Same thing, 2 to 4 sets, 5 to 8, maybe 10 repetitions. So I'm training calves. That takes about 10, 15 minutes total. I try and move relatively quickly through that. So 2 to 3 minutes rest, maybe 4 if I'm going for a heavy set. Then I'm weaker in the hamstrings than I am in my quads. So I do 2 warm-ups and then 2 to 4 working sets of lying leg curls, very standard stuff. Then I go do 2 to 4 sets, but typically 3 of glute ham raises, which is an incredible exercise. The equipment isn't in every gym, but I'm doing, about 3 or 4 sets of glute ham raises, going slow. And, this is basically like if you were going to do a deadlift, take the ground and rotate it 90 degrees and make it the wall. That's what a glute ham raise really is. It allows you to do a deadlift, but then at the top, do a leg curl. Glute ham raises are great, lower back, so entire posterior chain. So then I'm done with calves and hamstrings, and then I'll do 2 or 3 sets of leg extensions. So maybe a warm up and then 2 or 3 sets of working leg extensions, which for whatever reasons are incredibly painful. I hate them, but they work to isolate the quads. And then 2 or 3 sets of working hack squats after a warm up. Hack squats, heavy. And then I'm done. And so the whole purpose of that Monday workout is it's like the opposite of what I'm doing on Sunday. It's get stronger, maintain some size, but really get stronger in the legs. When you look at the literature on cognitive improvements from resistance training, it's not from bicep curls. It's not from bench presses. I suppose it could be from things like dips, which are sort of like a upper body squat of sorts, especially if they're weighted or with rings or something. But training the legs is key. And so, as I said before, there are 2 goals. One is to get the legs stronger. The other is that I'm trying to create a systemic anabolic. I want strong legs. I want a strong body. I want a body that can accomplish endurance, and I want the cognitive effects. So you get that systemic anabolic effect. And keep in mind, the entire leg workout takes 10 minutes of warm up and about 50 minutes of training. The Tuesday is very different. Tuesday, I don't want to call it a recovery day. But Tuesday, I'm doing something really different. First of all, my legs need recovery. So what I'll do is substantial amounts of deliberate heat exposure and deliberate cold exposure. Yes, I do cold showers in the morning first thing nowadays. Yes, it is a bad idea to do cold water immersion after hypertrophy training. So just for the record, you don't want to get into an ice bath after hypertrophy training in the 6 hours after hypertrophy training because it can blunt the hypertrophy. It blocks the inflammation, which is exactly what you want to trigger the adaptation of hypertrophy. But Tuesday is really about getting the maximum effect of heat exposure and cold exposure. I do a protocol which is pretty intense, designed to amplify growth hormone, stimulate a bunch of positive mood promoting hormones that last not just days, but weeks, say the literature, and just get better at it. So I'll do 20 minutes of sauna, hot sauna.
What does hot mean?
I'm up to like 260 now.
Okay.
260, but I worked up to that. 20 minutes in the sauna, very hot, 3 to 5 minutes in the cold plunge up to the neck, back into the sauna for 20 minutes, back into the cold plunge for 3 to 5 minutes, back into the sauna for 20 minutes, back into the cold plunge for 3 to 5 minutes. It's work, but it's amazing in the sense that you recover very well from the leg day. You generate all the hormone neurotransmitter type of adaptations that one wants, and you get very, very good at tolerating heat and cold. And then Wednesday, I do one of two things. I'm either going to do a shorter duration than Sunday cardiovascular training workout. So I'm thinking about 5 minutes of warm up and then about 25 to 30 minutes of usually running for me, where I'm just trying to get out and cover as much distance as I can at a fast clip, but steady. So I'm not sprint, stop. That's typically what I'll do on Wednesday. Although if my legs are still a little bit sore, that's when I'll train what I call torso. What do? I trying to get pushing through the chest and shoulders. I'm trying to pull for the back. So what I tend to do is overhead shoulder presses after a warm up, 2 to 3 sets, working sets or maybe 4. I like ring dips and dips these days. Those are hard for me, but 2 or 3 work sets of those. So chest, shoulders, and I'm going to upset some people here, but I don't tend to train back every week. I do it every other week because I have some genetic abnormality where those grow really easily and I can throw proportions off really quickly. But I might do 3 or 4 sets of chins, sort of max rep chins, slow, with slow eccentric movements, the lowering as well. So all of the movements are done at trying to move as much weight as possible, as quickly as possible on the concentric phase, and then lowering it anywhere from 2 to 4 seconds, kind of loading it like a spring and then trying to explode. I want strength, I want explosiveness, and some hypertrophy sneaks in because I'm working in that, 5 to 8 rep range. So that's what I call torso because it's chest, shoulders, back. Every other week I'll throw in those chins. And I think everyone has a muscle group like this where if they train it just grows like a weed, but I want to keep proportions, right? Strength proportions as well. And I do train my neck that day as well. Having a strong neck, why is that so important? Well, it's important because you want a strong spine and it's the upper portion of your spine. The other thing that I notice that it does is it completely changes my psychology to train my neck. I just naturally stand more upright.
Yeah.
I find it easier to look people in the eye. It's not hard for me to look people directly in the eye when I speak to them, but I find I just have my posture and presence is just better. So if for whatever reason I do the cardio workout that I mentioned, the 25 or 30 minutes of running, that's what I do. But some people might do it on the assault bike or something like that, or cycling or rower on the Wednesday. Then I'll do that weight workout I just described, torso, on Thursday, or I'll swap them. So there's some flexibility built into the week, travel, etc. By the way, the cardiovascular workouts can be done in the morning or the evening, but I always prefer to do them in the morning and just get it done with. Then Friday is a really important day because Friday is the day that I do a short workout, usually only about 3 minutes of warm up and about 12 minutes of training. And the goal is to get my heart rate as high as I possibly can. I learned this from Andy Galpin, just increasing VO2 max, getting those really fast twitch muscle fibers. My favorite way to do this is I'll get on the assault bike, which are the ones with the handles with the fan, and do 20-second on sprint, 10-second rest, 20-second on, 10-second rest. Tabata type thing for 6 to 8 rounds. And then what I like to do is take a band and tie it to something like a chin-up bar or something, and I'll squat down and jump. And I'll do as high jumping as I possibly can, but I actually control the eccentric. I'm holding the band as I come down. And so I learned from Peter Attia, I've learned from Andy Galpin that our ability to jump and land is strongly correlated with physical longevity. And then Saturday is the fun one because I'm still enjoy this. I'll go into the gym in the morning, usually it's mid-morning, and I'll do small muscle groups, biceps, triceps, rear delts. I'll do another tib and calf workout, a little bit lighter than the one on leg day because leg day is coming in 2 days. And the next day I'm doing that long hike. So that day is really to round out the smaller muscle groups that need work. But I just want to backtrack one step because I failed to say that Friday, the idea is to get that VO2 max up. But guess what? It's also designed to indirectly hit the legs. We hit legs on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
And they've recovered. We now know that protein synthesis maximizes after these training workouts at about 48 hours and then starts to taper off. Now, you read that, you hear that a lot, especially on social media, and people think you have to hit a muscle group every 48 hours. But no, you hold on to the protein synthesis you generated for another couple of days. So that Friday sprint on the bike workout or sprint on a field workout and jumping is indirectly targeting the quads and calves and hamstrings. And so you're keeping them online for hypertrophy. And so that's the schedule. And again, if you think about that schedule, each day you're accomplishing like endurance, leg strength, cold and heat adaptation, and all the neural stuff that goes with that. Torso, to keep the torso strong. But here again, we can say the torso work is indirectly hitting biceps and triceps. Then running for 20 years, being able to run a couple miles is a good skill. And what you find is that if you trained your legs properly and you give them enough rest, and the cold and heat really help too, you are so strong on that 20 or 30 minute run. Your tibs are strong, you no floppy feet, no back pain. You're running with vigor and you go, wow, like this is great. And so what I've noticed in the last 24 months or so is that I continue to get stronger and better in each of these areas. I find that this routine has really helped me because I think it takes into account the slower recovery that is just me. My nervous system doesn't recover that quickly. And it also embraces the fact that our nervous system and musculoskeletal system can train for different adaptations simultaneously across the week.